Right, Mr. Thompson is about to join us.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Antoine.
All right, just give me 1 second. I was having some challenges. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Glad to be here with you. Do we see if we got all our folks? All right. Okay, we're ready to rock and roll. You can let everyone in. All right, Diane, are we ready to get started?
Yeah.
Can't hear you all that good.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Okay. Before we get started, I don't see any guests on here. I only see the speakers.
Right there, we don't have anyone just yet in the waiting room,
Oh, okay.
and we
Oh,
are live. So,
oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll get started. I apologize. All right, we'll get started right now. Antoine Thompson, glad to be here with you all. Let me put my regular face. Hopefully, everyone's having a nice summer and enjoying themselves this summer. We are having our accelerating access to EV charging, biodiesel, and local fueling stations. So really excited about this. We have a dynamic group of some exciting speakers today, subject matter experts in the industry. I wanted to share just a couple quick things with you. One is the upcoming announcements, as always, on August 8th. We'll have from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We'll have our clean energy and clean transportation um, industry meeting. Again, that's August 8th through 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We're also gearing up for our October annual conference, October 15th and 16th. You can register for those as well. There are one funding announcement that I wanted to mention. There's the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Discretionary Grant. It's a $1.3 billion funding opportunity that will take place. That will You can apply for some good funding for uh, EV charging, hydrogen, propane, and even natural gas. Again, that's $1.3 billion in funding. So please
And
make
that's
sure.
Antoine, that's public charging, just so everybody knows. That's public charging. Just be aware.
Yes, yes, and that is for public charging as well. So again, that's a good chunk of money. Make sure that you apply. If you're applying, you need some uh, uh, letters of support or things of that nature. Let us know, or you need us to take a look at your application. Please feel free to do that as well. I just want to just take a quick moment and read a few things about our speakers. We have David Castile. He leads Blue Well EV's public sector business, focusing on local, state, and federal education markets. Dave brings more than 35 years of public sector experience, including serving as president for FEI Systems and several other senior positions for 15 years as well. Emily Loftus is the EV project engineer at Sheets Incorporated. She studied environmental engineering at Michigan State University with a minor in sustainability. Her current role focuses on the strategic development of EV charging portfolio across the Sheet footprint. And Jill Hamilton founded Sustainable Energy Strategies, Inc. in 1997. For more than 20 years, she has provided the industry with direction on fundraising, public awareness, grant support, project management, event coordination, and more. She leverages alternative fuels industry funds with public and private resources, as well as initiates, writes, and manages federal grant programs for clients. And she serves as the chair of our board of directors as well. So without further ado, I want to get right into our panelists. Again, one of the big things I want to say today is we are so committed to making sure that we have more greater access to biodiesel and EV charging at local fueling stations. We are on a mission to get as much access as humanly possible of these two fuel categories across our region. They're just not readily available as much as we would like. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. And so I just got an interruption by someone's dog. Hold on one second. But without further ado, I'm going to have David kick us off, and then I need to close the door because before this dog drives me crazy. So David, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Antoine. I'm Dave Castillo of Blue Well EV. If you could put up my slides, Diane, that would be great. Diane, do you happen?
She has them. I think it's a slight delay. She has them though.
Okay. All right.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Anyways, I think to start this off, the EV world is a very exciting world, and Blue Well focuses on providing that infrastructure. We represent and resell multiple manufacturers. As you would expect in this world right now, the market is accelerating. There's a tremendous amount of growth. I'm talking to the first slide, and when we get up, we'll be able to see it. There are cost savings. Right now the price point of the EVs is coming down. It's coming on parity with a lot of the ICE automobiles. The used market is picking up with more and more inventory that's out there. You had the next slide. There you go. If you can put it in presentation mode. So anyways, and then the one thing that a lot of people do talk about is the performance of the vehicles. When you have a 7,000-pound truck, as a Tesla Cybertruck is, it can go to 0 to 60 in less than four seconds. It's pretty impressive. That's not the only reason to drive those vehicles, but it's really around sustainability, improving the environment, and getting better gas mileage or better energy performance out of the vehicles. And the one thing that people are worried about is range, and the battery technology is continuing to improve. I think Toyota is expecting to have a solid state battery that could get up to 600 or 700 miles on a single charge. So there's a lot of rapidly changing things within this market. So it's very exciting. So if you go to the next slide, please. The market itself is accelerating with, in 2022, about 6% of new car sales was about right around 6%. Right now, we're expecting about between 8 and 9% this year by the end of the fourth quarter. As you see, the projections is going to continue to grow. Even if there's a change of administration, I don't see if there's any potential impact of what these numbers are going to be out there. The market's going to drive this. Right now, I think we're in the in between the early adopter mode, right, and in that chasm, so to speak, where the early adopters are as it become more of a mainstream type thing. Next slide. One thing that's interesting or different about the EVs for those who have driven them or understand, you hear about charging and how am I going to charge? The paradigm is very different. You know, the paradigm for EVs is really about 40 to 50% of the folks will be able to charge at home. So you leave your home, you have the ability to leave your home pretty much with a full charge or full tank if you're looking at, you know, from that perspective. However, there's still going to be quite a bit of investment or requirements around having EV chargers throughout the country and in a variety of areas. That includes at restaurants, at work, but also at service stations like Sheets. So that paradigm is shifting is quite a bit. So you can go to, you know, at our office at Blue Whale, we have 4 chargers. We're going to add 2 more. Where you actually plug in and we treat it as an amenity. You know, employees and our vehicles plug in for free. So there's a lot of ways of driving that demand, and we actually have more vehicles than we have chargers available. So it's a nice little problem to have. But that's kind of the paradigm that's out there in general. If you go to the next slide, please. If you look from the installation process itself, a lot of it's going to be, there's a step that's not here that should be here, which is really figure out what's the problem you're trying to solve and what's your overall strategy and game plan. If you're a fleet operator, you know, you're not going to buy all EVs to begin with, but what's your plan to transition, and how many of you are going to transition? If you're looking to do it from a commercial perspective, I'm going to do it as a business. What's the ROI on the model, you know, in terms of the investment? We can see investments in some cases being anywhere between 18 to 24 months. You get a payback period. It can be faster depending upon the options and various funding mechanisms, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, you look at the funding and the business models. We'll come out and do a site assessment, do a design, site prep. Then it's really installation and commissioning process, which is really the actual install. A lot of what we do from Blue Whale is we'll make sure that we're one-stop shopping. We ensure that you know, the working with utility and the permitting agencies, all that stuff happens. And then the exciting part comes on when you do the commissioning. You do the commissioning and start bringing the customers on board, and then the general support. Yeah, the process can take a matter of weeks for construction, the permitting and design. If you need utility upgrades, can make it a bit longer, but every site is going to be different. Well, we work with the customers on each and every site to determine what's the best plan and strategy to go forward. Next slide, please. You look at the funding, you know, the Inflation Reduction Act had a significant amount of funding, and as Antoine mentioned earlier, the CFI put $1.3 billion worth of opportunities for public charging out there. There's a number of other programs out there from the federal. There's, you know, EPA has grants, Department of Transportation has grants. You know, the state governments also operate grants and rebates, and that's going to depend state by state. There's also local organizations, you know, like District of Columbia has some investment tax credits, and also utilities are also providing some incentives for EV charging. So a lot will vary. But one thing that's also to be aware of, there's a 30C tax credit that's being done by the IRS for certain investments in clean technology. And this is, you know, please talk to your tax advisor, your tax people. We're not those experts, and every situation will be a little different. But your business or your organization may be eligible for a federal tax credit, which means you can get up to $100,000 back as a tax credit in the year that it's actually deployed and commissioned. However, one additional thing that was done by the IRS in January of this year was to make that extension to local governments and nonprofits, where there's an option called direct pay that will do the same 30% direct pay as a check to the organization once that work is done and the paperwork is sent in. Now, there's certain eligibility criteria, census tract availability, prevailing wages must be paid in order to get those tax credits. But there's a lot of you know, again, consult your tax advisors to make sure this is applicable to you. But clearly, the funding mechanism is driving a lot of what's out there, and it's what's making this pretty exciting. Next slide. We talked a little bit about the return on investment. you know, 18 to 24 months, can be sooner, can be later, you know, in terms of return on investment, payback periods. You know, the general charging route, but you can bring income in, you can get extended stays, you can build brand loyalty. You know, there's a lot of different models out there right now in terms of how this can be done. It can be, you know, there's a hybrid investment models. A number of investment organizations and charger companies will fund parts of this as well. So you know, in general, folks that are doing this are seeing a pretty good return on investment. They're keeping the chargers are pretty busy. If you notice in the Mid-Atlantic area, the Wawas and Royal Farms, there's a ton of Tesla chargers that are out there. And I live on the eastern shore of Maryland with beach traffic the other day. The about 50 or 60% of the chargers were all being taken, and they had a huge amount of people inside. So again, there's a significant amount of brand loyalty that can be brought to this, but also it's a convenience. And you know, if you're looking at a DC fast charger, you're stopping in for 15, 20 minutes, you can get a pretty good top off with that. Next slide. I'm not going to go through all these, but there are a couple key considerations to think about. Is really, like I said up front, define your goals, know what your investment plan is, what you're really trying to accomplish here. You know, and there is a concept of future proofing, design for the future. A lot of the infrastructure costs that you'll see is upgrading and putting the electrical infrastructure that's in place. And typically it's best to do that one time, and then you build and make you know, you don't need to pull the wire, put the additional breakers in for the other chargers, or put the other chargers in. But if you build with a long-term plan in mind, you know, and the other ones, it's just the investment, you don't have to redo that work in particular. Look at all the incentives. You know, there's, as mentioned in the other slide, there is a significant amount of incentives that's being offered, you know, by multiple entities, and organizations will provide a look at, you know, what's available in that particular area, in that particular address. There is you know, look at your state, your options. When we speak with our customers, we want to make sure they're not overpaying for what they need. If you're looking at a multifamily housing unit, most of the folks are going to be charging overnight. Do you really need a higher amp charger, or will one of lower amp chargers be sufficient? Yeah, that's going to drive some of your costs. You know, if you're looking for convenience stores like the Sheets, and they'll talk about a little bit different user scenario. Same thing with fleets. It all depends on what your use case is, and we want to make sure we design something that's relevant to your use case. You know, you want to make sure you got a qualified partner for design, installation, and commissioning. You know, without the right partner, you can you may make some heavy investment mistakes. We've seen a number of them, and you know, when things were fast and furious early on, you know, the number of installation challenges that we've had to go and remedy has been pretty. There've been a number out there. I wouldn't say it's been significant, but there's been a number out there. Look for, you know, high availability. You know, there's a lot of aspects that the vendors will provide the manufacturers, from, you know, the network connectivity to warranty options, and also preventive maintenance. Don't underestimate the ability to, you know, the need for maintaining and keeping them up to maintain that 97% uptime. Next slide, please. And that's all I have, Antoine. Over back to you.
Just one moment. For some reason, people are having a hard time getting into the meeting. Just give me 1 second. All right, next, I know I'm getting all these emails. People are having a hard time getting into the meeting.
Well, it's a good thing that's recorded, but
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. All right, so next we'll go, next we'll go to Emily Loftus, who is heading up this big effort for Sheets, one of my favorite fueling stations. I always tease I have my Sheets card, and we're really just so excited about all the good work that they're doing with EV charging, but they also have all the different grades of of biofuels, so ethanol and biodiesel and all that good stuff. So welcome, Emily. The floor is yours. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Anton. It's great to be here. Like I said, I'm Emily Loftus. I'm our EV project engineer here at Sheets. I focus on our strategic deployment of our EV charging projects across our portfolio. So that's what I'll be speaking on today. A little less on the, biodiesel area. It's not my expertise, but I could probably answer a couple questions if anybody had any. If you could go to the next slide. Yeah, so for those of you who are unfamiliar, Sheets, we are a regional convenience store in the Mid-Atlantic. We were founded in 1952. Currently, we have around 750 stores across our 7-state footprint. Our newest state that we're opening up our first store in August will be Michigan. So we're starting to make our way a little bit more Midwest, which is quite exciting. You could go to the next slide. So for Sheets' EV history, back in 2012, we opened up our first chargers. We installed 5 chargers at 5 different stores between Pittsburgh and Harrisburg to enable fully electric travel across Pennsylvania. This was definitely the early days of DC fast charging. So, 50 kW output, what seemed very fast at the time is considered quite slow today. So it's definitely a testament to how technology can change rather rapidly. Obviously, it's been 10 plus years since then, but it's good to keep that in mind. And it was definitely quite a learning experience for us to own and operate those stations back in the day. So shortly thereafter, in around 2015, we started establishing partnerships with some of the leading charge point operators today with the goal of expanding our EV infrastructure farther than just Pennsylvania. So today we've continued to expand with our host partners. We currently work with Tesla, Electrify America, EVgo, and Francis Energy. So some familiar names across the table. And we have been expanding rapidly since then. In 2022, we celebrated our 1 millionth charging session at our stores, which is quite a feat for us within that 10-year time frame to go from 5 chargers originally to 1 million charging sessions. And then in 2023, we opened up our 100th charging station. So definitely making, leaps and strides since we first started. You can go to the next slide. So today we have around 111 open charging stations across our footprint with just over 3 million total charging sessions on our lots. And we anticipate hitting 200 charging stations by 2027. So as I was saying today, our active portfolio is made up of sites through our host partners. So Sheets does not own and operate the equipment, but we rely on our host partners to install, find new places that they want to put charging, and make sure that we are continuing to expand in areas to kind of collectively build out the Sheets network, but then also, make sure that we're building out our respective host partners network as well. We've been able to take action with some funding opportunities at the state and federal level. And we've recently stepped back into the Sheets owned charging and operating charging experience. So we're currently deploying 8 charging sites through the NEVI program that are venturing back out into that charge point operator space for Sheets owned and operated sites. So that is through Ohio and Pennsylvania, which is quite exciting to get back out there and kind of take the learnings that we've had from 2015 till now about kind of watching our host partners own and operate the equipment on sites and, kind of understand that customer need and where is a good place to expand charging, types of plugs to have on site, things like that. So I think it's a great opportunity to take advantage of all of this funding that they have available. And it's also been really great to have the ability to stack grants with utility charging rebates to help offset some of the initial investment costs and focus more on spreading our capital to multiple projects. So for all of those sites, they were from the first couple rounds of NEVI, which are still in the development phase of a lot of our sites. I think it's always good to understand what you're getting into when you do accept a grant. I think it's a great way to be able to take funding and spread wealth, but also you have to understand the requirements that go along with it when it comes to charging setups, ADA, Title 23, and different compliance things. So I think that has definitely been a super big learning experience for us as we continue to, apply for different grants and work through these projects. It's definitely been a good opportunity to learn. And so we're nearing completion on a handful of these sites. So we're excited to get them up and running, hopefully the end of this calendar year, beginning of next. And the next slide. So yeah, our overall goal is to continue to expand access to EV charging across our portfolio, regardless of our ownership model. So while Sheetz ourselves are stepping back into that charge point operator space, we are still going to continue to work with our host partners to be able to expand charging. So it's, not just where we want to put Sheetz own sites, but, to continue to make that growth across our entire portfolio. So we look forward to the continued opportunity to expand our charging presence, especially with the help of the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. And that is all.
Yes, we all have a lot of questions for you. So we're going to have Jill come back because, we all want to hear about how you've been able to get charging at some of those many fueling stations that you have around the region. And I see Swapna from the Maryland, DC gas and repair station owner. Good to see you today. So we got a lot of good folks who are here from all over the country. I see Sahara from Rochester, New York on as well. So let's go to Jill Hamilton. Jill, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully Diane or Jill will pull up the slides, but while we're waiting for those slides to come up, just wanted to thank Emily and Dave for their presentations. And as chair of the coalition, we want all of our members to benefit. And I'm a small women-owned business. Please go ahead and click that. Thank you. I'm a small woman-owned business, but I'm a member of Greater Washington Region because it returns manyfold the investment that I make in the coalition. So I hope you all will consider joining if you haven't, and I think you'll find that you'll find business opportunities here. And if not, come talk to us. But Emily, we want to see a way to get those EV chargers to not just be at your station, but making money for your station. So I hope to work with you more on that. And I'm sure Dave wants to help you too. So my presentation, however, although we do EV charging grants, I'm going to be focused today on biofuels. So what's in it for you? What's the future of low carbon fuels? And what is an HBIP grant, Higher Blend Infrastructure Incentive Grant? And are there other funding opportunities? Dave mentioned a few. Who can apply for these grants, and what is the grant application process? And want to give a shout out to Maryland Grain and Clean Fuels Alliance America, my clients that are covering me today to be here. So thank you. And thanks, Antoine, for having us. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So most of us back in the day, I've been doing this for 30 years, and it used to be about energy independence, air pollution, rural economic development, still those things. But what's driving more investment today is low carbon emissions. I think we all are aware of that. We're finding that these low carbon fuels are becoming economically viable. We're paying for what I call back in the day, the true cost of fuel. I didn't want my boys to have to fight for our oil rights abroad, and that's why I got involved in this. So, but it's become more about some of these environmental issues. Today, we have over 275 million registered light-duty vehicles on the road as of 2023, recent statistics. That's going to change slowly as we see this infrastructure development to electrification, but we're going to still need these liquid fuels for a long time. We've got 7 million registered passenger diesels and about 11.4 million heavy-duty trucks on the road. And I saw Wendy on the call as well, who's done a lot with the rail and last delivery mile vehicles as well. And that's not going to change quickly. The changing that boat is going to take time. So we need to still be decarbonizing that liquid fuels market, and that's what this is about. So okay, please jump to the next slide. So why would you need to do it? Well, first of all, it's increasing and maintaining your economic stimulation. As a retailer, you want to maintain your business model. like I said, Emily, we want to make sure you're maintaining that revenue coming in, not just at the sales counter, but at the pump, so to speak, and we can help you do that. And that economic stimulation keeps jobs locally or creates new ones. It keeps us in clean air. I think, Antoine, you've spoken about that for quite a bit. Healthcare costs, your government taxes at work, but it's also public image as well. And we slowly want to reduce that petroleum consumption as well. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. Thanks. So what are these clean burning alternatives? I've only mentioned a few here: biodiesel, renewable diesel, fuel, ethanol, can be used in those on-road vehicles, liquid fuels today. Biodiesel is a chemical process, fairly inexpensive way to take vegetable oils, waste veg oils, animal fats into a usable fuel. Renewable diesel is, for those who aren't aware, it's similar to how you refine petroleum products. You hydrotreat it, and then ethanol is a fermentation process. All these fuels can be easily blended in and have ASTM specifications. Go ahead and jump to the next slide.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Reggie, do you mind muting yourself? Thank you. Thank you. So just starting with fuel ethanol, for those that aren't aware, E15 is also known as regular 88 or unleaded 88, is about 20 cents cheaper per gallon, and flex fuel or E85 is about 88 cents cheaper nationally. So there's economic reason to do it. It's a reason to draw people into your station. And Emily, you're already doing it at many of your stations too. And it's making your competition take notice. We want to encourage some of you other retailers to make these investments, or some of you fleets. You'll find that there's an economic reason for doing it. And if you notice this bottom right graphic, there's a quick ramp up of E15 and E85 exponentially over the last few years. Not quite as much as EV chargers. It's a little more expensive to put in, but it's having a tremendous impact on decarbonization. We're going to talk about it in a minute. Okay, next slide, please. So if you notice this upper right picture, we're at 20 cents cheaper for 88. And I'm hearing that some are now marketing regular 88 as 87 octane. They're giving up that, they're foregoing that 1% increase in octane just to promote the price. So price matters. People will pay attention to it and they'll buy it because it's cheaper, but they need to feel comfortable with it. The picture at the bottom here is showing that it's almost, it's 80 to 90 cents more expensive to have ethanol-free gasoline. So it's clearly, for those of you who are going to the pump, you're going to pay attention to the price as well. But it's also higher octane. Go ahead and switch to the next slide. We're going to bounce through these pretty quickly. This slide is just, it's showing you how quickly we've added sites. But it's also showing you that there's a variety of customers using it, Sheets being one of them. And this picture on the left is showing you the E15, E85 stations in Maryland, in our metropolitan region, Maryland, Virginia, and DC. So it's not something new, but at the same time, we need to do more and we need to do it faster. And so we're going to talk about some of these funding opportunities. You want to learn about these stations? There's a link at the bottom of the page. Let's go. And Sheets wouldn't be doing this if they didn't feel comfortable with the fuel. I'm not going to talk so much about fuel quality, but these retailers are doing it, and not to worry about making this investment. Next slide, please. This slide is about biodiesel. So I said I've been doing this for 30 years, but look at how rapid biodiesel has grown. This is from yesterday's slide. I collected this data from Clean Fuels Alliance America. So we're only halfway through 2024. Otherwise, it would continue to show a ramp up. The industry has a goal of 6 billion gallons. And when they set this goal several years ago, everyone's kind of wondering, how are we going to get those feedstocks? But the industry has delivered, and they're probably going to hit 6 billion way before 2030. There's about 5% of the on-road market is diesel. About 5.1 billion gallons is renewable diesel, excuse me. Renewable diesel, biodiesel, these advanced biomass-based diesel fuels. And there are new markets, jet fuel, I mentioned rail with Wendy, ocean-going ships, home heating oil, even electric generation. we'll see more of these fuels coming into the marketplace, but we hope that you'll look at biodiesel as an option at your retail station. And B100 meets the producers have this, the industry has this voluntary program as a quality assurance program called BQ 9000. And 90% of our producers are in this program. It helps them to work with the producers, marketers, laboratories to make sure that they meet ASTM specifications. A lot has changed over the last 20 years, 30 years that biodiesel has been around. And it went from a 6-month shelf life to over 3 years now. So there's, you know, a lot of those fears that were originally around aren't there anymore, but it is still something that we continue to improve to work with the technology. Go ahead and flip to the next slide. The next one, please. So we're going to talk about decarbonization for a moment. So this is done by the Renewable Fuels Association. It's their decarbonization strategy. They have a whole process to get to lower carbon, but they expect the industry will be decarbonized by be at 70% decarbonization by 2030, just a few years away, and net zero by 2050. I think the grid is also working on decarbonizing, but the biofuels, many of them are much farther along than you may realize. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. This is the gold standard for low carbon fuel standards is the California Low Carbon Fuel Standard. This graphic here shows you that 80% of the decarbonization in that gold standard policy is being done by biofuels, ethanol, biodiesel, and renewable diesel. And has been for years. Even though these fuels continue to grow in the market space, as does electric, the biofuels have continued to dominate. Go ahead and click to the next slide. So biodiesel today, on average, reduces GHGs by 70%. So you'll have an immediate impact when you start using it. Ethanol is about 46%, but as I mentioned, they have their decarbonization strategy for getting to 80% in the next few, 70% in the next few years and beyond. All on-road gasoline contains 10% ethanol. Many people don't realize that. You may see it when you fill up your car. This fuel contains 10% ethanol. But we want to swap that fuel for E15 or even higher blends, but it's already having a huge impact. That 17 billion gallons a year reduces about 42.7 million metric tons of CO2 a year. Similarly, Brazil's at 31%. We can easily use that as a model for what we can do here. And then it's equivalent to reducing 12 million vehicles of zero emission vehicles per year. So there's a lot of decarbonization already going on that people don't even realize every day. Let's talk about why we're here, though, is to learn more about these funding opportunities. So what is HBIP, or the Higher Blend Infrastructure Incentive Program? Well, under the Inflation Reduction Act, there's 500 million, of which they've carved out 450 million to award over 5 quarters. We're in the last window of that. The awards are there's about 90 million per window, and awards are made supposedly 90 to 100 days later, but I'm finding that they're notifying folks within that window, within a couple months of submitting their application. You can apply to up to 5 million per window. So Sheets, since we have Sheets here with us today, you could apply for up to 5 million and get 5 million in matching grants. But you can apply for up to 3 windows, 5 million each window. But because we're in the last window, we're not sure whether or not we're going to have another one after this. So take the advantage of this opportunity. Matching funds are required. If you're a fuel retailer with less than 10 stations, you can ask for 75% of the cost of your project. Or if you're a home heating distributor, home heating oil distributor. And you can do a project up to 36 months. So if you had multiple locations, you might phase in those projects over 36 months. That's about it. As I mentioned, we're in the last window that closes the end of September. So you have time to get your application in, but don't waste this time. If you think you might want to apply, now's the time to get a bid or understand what your costs are going to be and select your sites and begin your application process. And we're going to talk about that. Okay. So who can apply? Transportation fueling facilities, that's your, and then fuel distribution facilities. I'll talk about what those are in just a second. A single applicant may apply for multiple sites in one application, but you can only submit one application. But the applicant must own or have a long-term lease for that property. Let's go ahead and bounce to the next slide. So as I mentioned, transportation fueling facilities are your fueling stations like Sheetz, convenience stores, hypermart stores, fleet facilities, delivery vehicles, municipalities, all fit under that transportation fueling. Then for a fuel distribution facility, those are your terminals, your depots, your middle marketers, your fuel distributors, maybe your home heating oil. There's about 68 million for the transportation fueling facility and about 18 million for the fuel distribution facilities. Both of those need to match dollar for dollar their applications. The home heating oil applications, again, they can get asked for 75% of the cost of the project, as can those 10%, those station owners with less than 10%. Next slide. What is considered a biofuel in this case? It's ethanol and biodiesel. Renewable diesel and sustainable aviation fuel do not apply. Unfortunately, a lot of people have asked about that. And ethanol, you have to be above 10%. 10% is considered the standard, as it is 5% biodiesel. So it's got to be B6, anything above B5. Next slide. So here's the retail fueling. So not your terminals, but your retail. If you look at the right-hand side, your dispensers are capped at 63,000 per dispenser for E85, and B20 is also 63. If you're in California, it's 130 for each of those. If you're retrofitting, it's a little less than that. And then for your fuel tanks, if you're doing ethanol, you're at 168,000 per tank, and that's all in. That can include the tank and the installation. Biodiesel, you at 200,000. In California, that's 300,000 for ethanol and 350 for biodiesel. Next slide. So what does a grant cover? It covers all the costs after you submit the application. However, no construction can begin until the agency has approved your environmental reviews. But it includes your tanks, your pumps, your auxiliary equipment, your gaskets, your sealants, construction costs, or replacement improvements, permits, licenses, etc. What it does not pay for your retail locations, your fleet sites, it does not pay for construction that would already incur. So if you're building a new station, which Sheetz has done, for example, or other retailers, if they install a new station, they can't include their tank, just as an example, because you'd have to anyway. Just an example. Go ahead and bounce to the next slide. So a lot of people ask about this. What are my accounting requirements? It's just general accounting principles. And once you get the award, if you're given an award, it's semi-annual reporting until you're done with construction, and then it's annual reporting. But it's just, again, submitting invoice receipts and general accounting. Bounce to the next slide. You're going to have to bounce through each line here. Sorry about that. Go ahead and hit the next point. So we encourage you to start now. Keep going. You want to organize a team to write your grant. Of course, that's where SCSI comes in. We'd be happy to help you. You want to register with SAM.gov and EOTH. You can't submit an application without that process. We're happy to talk you through that. You want to compile your budget and get your environmental paperwork done. There's a four-page survey you have to do. You want to line up your costs, and it takes about 2 to 3 months to complete that application. So don't delay. Don't think you can do it in a week. Go ahead and bounce to the next slide. That's just the address and what the website looks like. Next page. Then you click on this, how to apply. You get this next page that has a list of other things. So keep going. Again, register with SAM.gov. Apply for your level 2 EOTH site. These are just the websites. I wanted to make sure that we had a visual of them in case you want to log in yourself. Go ahead and next page. And that's the end. That's where I cut it off. So thank you so much for letting me run through that very quickly. There's a lot in there, but we're hoping that you all on this call will take advantage of this funding opportunity. Dave mentioned some other tax credits for electrification. Those same tax credits apply to ethanol and biodiesel infrastructure as well, but you have to follow the requirements. So That's it for
Jill,
me.
can
Thank
you,
so much.
for those who've never applied for federal money,
Yep.
you tell them what a sam.gov account is and why it matters?
Sure. Sam.gov is the site for basically identifying you as an entity to the federal government, and they will ask you very specific information. It allows you an opportunity to get federal funding. There's also a grants.gov, which that's a site that will track and identify funding opportunities. There's a login.gov that's very specific to you as an individual. And these are ways that the federal government makes sure that you do not, that you're not a bot or that you're a real entity. So they will ask you very personal questions about you for login.gov, like where you lived, what a recent credit card purchase was. I'm not kidding you. It's very specific. Same thing with grants, sam.gov. They're going to check with you to make sure that you're a real entity. Does that answer your question, Antoine?
Yes, yes. And so everyone, so applying for federal money, if it's one thing, but that's why you want to have experts who can help you through that process. It's reliable money, but there is some red tape. And so that's where we come in to assist you with that. So I want to find out if anyone has any questions. You can throw them in the chat as well. But I want to go to Emily just to share with us about some of the things you all have learned over the last 10 years, putting chargers at some of your existing stations. So maybe what are two of the two top things you've learned over the last 10 years of putting chargers in at Sheets?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say one of the most important things is doing due diligence ahead of time, and making sure that you are not disrupting any traffic to the store, any traffic to our pumps, any underground systems. We have a lot of underground infrastructure, as many fueling stations do. That there are specific requirements of how far you have to be away from underground storage tanks, things like that, for fire safety reasons. So I think that has definitely been one of the biggest design learning curves that we've had, especially as different requirements change over time, especially for fire rules, things like that. Easements, making sure that you're in an area where if somebody is towing something and they can kind of pull in a bit more and kind of have a very easy space for people to charge. So from the design side, I'd say due diligence ahead of time is something that we typically focus on quite a bit. And then making sure that you're kind of updating equipment over time and keeping up with changing technologies, plug standards, things like that. So obviously with the max plug developments with automakers, and making sure that the charging stations and the infrastructure that you are putting in is going to be applicable to as many customers as possible, making sure that you have multiple plug types, so you have CCS, NACS, things like that. I know CHAdeMO isn't as popular as it used to be. I think it's kind of going away, but still making sure that you have availability for people to come charge, and that you're not just leaving one specific group stranded in a certain area. Those have definitely been some learning lessons that we've had. And then in general, just education to consumers, making sure that you have your people on site to be able to help if they do have questions with charging. Things happen, chargers are down, you're calling help centers. You might not always be getting direct answers. So our employees at our stores are also able to help a little bit with that as well. So I think just making sure that the customer has a good charging experience on site, and makes them want to come back.
One of the things that has sparked some interest for people going installing chargers at gas stations is because supposedly people who charge, they're likely to stay a little longer at the station, likely to wind up spending a little more, maybe not $100 more, but they tend to buy extra coffee or extra sandwich, and maybe now that we advocate lottery, but maybe play some lottery tickets or something like that. Have you all been able to see any residual benefit from people charging at all?
Yeah, so typically we do see people stay anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, depending on the vehicle that they're charging, the state of their battery. So 20 minutes, typically it's like a bathroom stop. They may come in to, grab a quick grab and go snack, something like that. The longer stays, you'll see people in there for a little bit longer, actually grabbing full meals, sitting down in our indoor seating. If it's nice in the summertime, outdoor seating. But yeah, we've definitely seen that expand quite a bit. We've done some surveys through PlugShare to kind of get more estimates, and then our site host partners provide us with a little bit of charging data on that to kind of see how many people we expect to be walking in the store. But it is a decent amount of people that will at least come in, whether they're buying something or not that first time around. At least they're coming in to see our offer, and then have a potential customer next time as well, whether they're charging or not.
All right. Next, thank you. Next, we have a question for Jill. Did your graph show more development in 2024 of renewable diesel over biodiesel?
I have to pull that back up, but I did put in the chat to I think Wendy Sugar Martin was the one that asked that question. That graphic was only showing a half year for 2024, so it isn't a full year. So we don't have the complete picture for 2024, but what we are seeing as a trend is that renewable diesel is growing, and biodiesel production is staying somewhat on par. It's not really decreasing so much as staying level, and RD is increasing rapidly, as our sustainable aviation fuel as well. But it's not enough to move the dial on that chart yet.
I think there was a question about additional rounds of HBIP grants. Do you want to
Yeah, that's
comment
a
on
great
that?
question. And I think that was Josh with Sheets who asked that question. Great question. It's $1 million question, but my answer is I do anticipate if they haven't spent all of this 450 million in these 5 rounds, that they're going to come out with another window. But I wouldn't wait to apply. Yeah, I wouldn't bank on it. In other words, we know that there's going to be money this window. So put your best foot forward this window. And if we get another opportunity, you'll have another chance at it.
And they can always notify their U.S. senators. Each state has 2, and their member of Congress saying that you need more funding. So that's one thing you can always do. And if you need us to sign a letter of support or endorse that request, that's how you get these things funded, right? We got to spend all the money, and so spend now. And if you got hundreds of stations out there, we'd love to see every one of you with low carbon and zero carbon fuels at your stations, at all of them, 100%, 0 to low carbon. Okay, so that's on our road to low to zero emissions. So you're gonna hear a lot about that for the next couple of years. All right.
And we're here to help coach you. All these, Emily or Dave or myself, we're here to help you along that process. So please reach out.
All right. I want to give Dave, Emily, and Jill 1 minute to just give. We have 4 minutes left. Dave, if you got 1 minute of closing comments, and how they can help you, how you can help them.
Blue
Plan, right?
Plan. Think ahead what you want to do. And we can help you with that process in terms of strategy, advisory, and counseling. There's a lot of things that are out there. There's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of vendors, and we see a lot of things that go very, very well. We see things that don't go as well. Don't make that expensive mistake. As my brother-in-law's father used to say, measure once or measure twice, cut once, right? Do it right the first time.
Yeah, the more cuts you make, the more money it costs you, right?
Exactly.
Emily.
Yeah, I definitely say taking advantage of any funding opportunities that you find available to you has really helped us with our Sheets own charging experience, as well as HBIP. I know Josh from Sheets works on that quite a bit. So, we're trying to take advantage of all refueling infrastructure grants. So definitely just be aware of what you're applying for and kind of understand the rules going into it. I would say it's a good lesson.
This has been great. Thank you. And Jill,
Two
Close us
things,
out.
Antoine, two things. One is Maryland Grain covers the cost of us doing an application for ethanol retail in Maryland. Would love to have folks take advantage of that. And there's some green bank funding in Maryland as well, especially for rural retailers to get low interest money to provide that matching funds. And then two, I want to ask you all to, if you haven't already, join GWRCCC. So shout out
Thank
back
you.
to you, Antoine. Thanks so
Thank you.
much for being here.
Thank you. And I want to give Ms. Siripata a chance to say anything. Ms. Siripata,
Hey, Antoine. Yeah, thank you.
how are you doing? Good afternoon. I'm
Well,
glad
good.
you could join us.
Yes, yes. I'm sorry, but I missed the first 15 minutes. It just couldn't. The first link didn't work, but I'm hoping we'll get the recording sent over. So I do see a few of our members have joined as well.
You want to say who you are?
Yes. Well, I'm from WMDA. It's a service station and automotive repair association. We're based in Bowie, Maryland. We have about 700 members and maybe over 1,500 locations that they represent. And we are in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and Delaware.
Thank you. Thank you. And there's a lot of funding out there. So we'd love to bring this presentation to one of your calls. Thanks for having your members come. There's something for everyone. And we want to, you had us come last year,
Yes.
but we're going to keep coming back and let your members know that we love to share one of these presentations. There are a lot of folks that are doing this, a lot of funding. There's plenty of funding out there, and we want to make sure your members get some of it, okay?
Sure, thank you.
All right, well, without further ado, I want to just mention to everyone, we're going to have a part 2 of this conversation on October 16th in person. So you'll be able to network, you'll be able to see these folks in person as well. We'll have a nice panel discussion on this and some more, not just Sheetz, but some other stations as well with all the different fuels. So save the date, October 16th. Meet us there at Martin's Crosswinds in Greenbelt, Maryland. In fact, there's a saying, don't meet us there, beat us there. So we'll see you soon. Thank you to our team and thank you to our wonderful presenters. And as Jill indicated, if you're not a member, join right now. gwrccc.org/membership. Take care and have a wonderful day.